Bullies trip him. They didn't know. He's a JIU-JITSU champion, just holding back. The locker slammed shut with unnecessary force as Ethan Morales gathered his books for third period. At 17, he could have easily passed for younger with his lean frame and unassuming presence. Standing at 5'7" and weighing barely 135 pounds, he navigated the crowded corridors of Lincoln High with practiced invisibility. His dark hair hung slightly over his eyes, which constantly scanned his surroundings while revealing nothing of his thoughts. 3 months had passed since his transfer to this school of nearly 2,000 students, yet he remained largely unknown. The oversized sweatshirts he favored concealed a physique shaped by 9 years of Brazilian jiu-jitsu training under his father Carlos, a retired mixed martial arts competitor who had fought professionally for 7 years. Beneath the quiet exterior lived discipline forged through countless hours on the mat, but Ethan had learned early that true strength meant knowing when not to use it. Every morning brought the same internal reminder as he entered Lincoln High: stay focused, avoid conflict, graduate. The established social hierarchies of a school where most students had grown up together made integration difficult enough without drawing attention. Unfortunately, attention found him anyway. Derek Patterson noticed the new kid immediately. Standing 6'3" with the build of a football linebacker, Derek commanded respect through size and aggression. His crew consisted of Brad Coleman, a wrestler with cold eyes and a cruel streak, and Luis Valdez, a basketball player who found safety in Derek's shadow. Together, they maintained their status through calculated intimidation. The harassment began subtly. A deliberate shoulder collision in a crowded hallway, followed by, "Watch yourself, freshman." Snide remarks when Ethan passed their usual spot near the vending machines. Comments about his height, his silence, his apparent inability to defend himself. Each incident met with the same response: nothing. Ethan's face remained neutral, absorbing the abuse without acknowledgement. "There's something wrong with that kid," Derek told Brad after another failed attempt to provoke a reaction. "It's unnatural how he just takes it." If they only understood, Ethan thought, overhearing the conversation from across the cafeteria. His father had drilled into him that warriors chose their battles carefully. Fighting without purpose was weakness disguised as strength. Real power came from restraint. The campaign intensified gradually, books knocked from his hands in passing, his locker vandalized with crude drawings and insults, Derek's crew forming human walls in hallways, forcing detours to class. Still, Ethan endured silently. During lunch, Brad would bump into him accidentally, sending trays flying. In physical education, Luis aimed dodgeballs at his head with excessive force. Derek coordinated everything with the precision of someone who had perfected cruelty as an art form. "Why doesn't he do anything?" Derek complained to his girlfriend Jessica one afternoon. "It's pathetic." Jessica frowned at her boyfriend's frustration. "Maybe you should find someone else to bother. He's not hurting anyone." Derek's expression darkened. "That's exactly the problem. He thinks he's superior, like we're beneath his notice. Someone needs to remind him of reality." Ethan heard every word from his spot 3 tables away, his trained ears picking up conversations others missed. His hands tightened briefly before he forced them to relax. Control was everything. Always had been. The weeks brought escalation. Derek's group began following him after school, hurling insults from passing cars. Social media accounts appeared overnight, dedicated to mocking the weird, quiet kid. Rumors spread about mental illness, medication, family problems with law enforcement. Faculty remained conveniently blind. Miss Thompson redirected her attention when Derek made comments during her English class. Coach Anderson never seemed to notice Brad flicking rubber bands at Ethan's head during assemblies. Principal Carter walked past obvious confrontations without stopping. The system protects itself, Ethan understood. Derek's family contributed generously to school programs. Athletic scholarships were on the line. A transfer student without connections didn't matter in the larger equation. Late October brought the moment everything changed. Tuesday morning, Ethan spotted Derek's crew stationed strategically near the main staircase. Derek leaned casually against the wall, his signature smirk in place, while Brad and Luis blocked escape routes. Ethan weighed his options. Being late for chemistry would mean detention, but confrontation seemed inevitable. He chose to proceed. "Well, look who decided to show up," Derek announced as Ethan approached. "Having a good morning?" Ethan maintained forward momentum, attempting to pass, but Brad stepped into his path. "Derek's talking to you," Brad said with menace. "Show some respect." "I need to get to class," Ethan responded evenly. Derek pushed off the wall, moving to block Ethan completely. "Class can wait. We're having a conversation." Students began gathering, phones appearing in hands, anticipating entertainment. "Still not talking much?" Luis added from behind. "Maybe he forgot how to speak." Ethan attempted to sidestep them, but Derek matched his movement. "Going somewhere?" "We're not finished." What followed happened fast. Derek signaled Brad, who had positioned himself perfectly. As Ethan stepped forward, Brad's foot swept his ankle with practiced timing. Ethan felt himself falling toward the concrete steps, books flying from his grip. Years of training activated instantly. His body rotated mid-fall, hands shooting out to distribute impact, core muscles engaging to protect his spine. He hit the ground in a controlled roll, minimizing damage through technique invisible to untrained eyes. Laughter erupted from the gathering crowd. Derek's voice carried above the rest. Guess coordination isn't his strong suit. Ethan found himself surrounded by scattered belongings and mocking faces. His chemistry notebook lay crumpled, his textbook splayed open with bent pages. Students recorded his humiliation, sharing his position on the ground for social media entertainment. But what truly stung wasn't the physical aspect. It was Jessica's shocked expression mixed with nervous laughter. It was the realization that to these people, he existed only as an object for amusement, not as a person deserving basic dignity. Something fundamental shifted. Ethan rose to his feet with a fluidity that made several students step back unconsciously. His movements carried a different energy now, controlled but dangerous. He collected his belongings methodically, each motion deliberate. "Pretty clumsy there," Derek continued, playing to his audience. "Maybe watch where you're—" Ethan straightened and met Derek's eyes directly for the first time since arriving at Lincoln High. Whatever Derek saw there made him take an involuntary step backward. "My name," Ethan said clearly, his voice cutting through the noise, "is Ethan Morales." The hallway fell silent. Something in his tone, his bearing, commanded attention. Derek recovered his composure quickly, face reddening. "I don't care what—" "Tomorrow," Ethan interrupted, his voice calm but carrying an edge that hadn't been there before. "After school, the lot behind the gymnasium." Derek blinked in confusion. "Are you seriously—" "You want to settle this?" Ethan asked, adjusting his backpack with movements that somehow seemed threatening. "Then we settle it. Just us." Brad laughed uncertainly. "Is he trying to act tough?" Ethan's gaze shifted to Brad, who felt an unexpected chill run through him. "You can come too if you want. Makes no difference to me, but understand that I'm done holding back." The phrase "holding back" lingered ominously, suggesting capabilities no one had suspected. Derek's face had turned crimson, trapped between his reputation and the crowd's expectations. "You think I'm going to waste energy on some scrawny nobody? Then leave me alone," Ethan said simply. "Your decision." He turned and walked away, leaving Derek speechless and his friends exchanging uncertain glances. News of the challenge spread through Lincoln High like wildfire. Within hours, everyone knew that the silent transfer student had called out Derek Patterson. Speculation ran wild about Ethan's sudden confidence. Some students were excited to see Derek finally challenged. Others anticipated watching him destroy the smaller boy. That evening, Ethan trained in his family's converted garage, working through familiar routines on the mats. His father, Carlos, watched from the doorway, reading the situation without words. "You challenged someone," Carlos observed. Ethan paused his drilling. "They've been escalating for months. Today they tripped me in front of everyone. And tomorrow? Tomorrow I defend myself. What happens depends on how far they push it." Carlos nodded thoughtfully. "Once you reveal your training, everything changes. You understand this?" "I'm tired of being invisible," Ethan replied with surprising intensity. "Tired of being their entertainment." The following day crackled with anticipation. Students who had never acknowledged Ethan suddenly wanted to know his story. Had he trained before? Did he understand Derek's size advantage? Was he prepared for the consequences? Ethan answered none of their questions, maintaining his usual quiet demeanor with one difference. His movements now carried unmistakable confidence that made people step aside instinctively. Derek struggled with the situation throughout the day. Backing down meant losing face, but something about Ethan's transformation unsettled him deeply. He found himself studying the smaller student during shared classes, searching for signs of hidden ability. "He's probably all talk," Brad reassured him at lunch. "Never been in a real confrontation." "Right," Derek agreed, though his voice lacked conviction. When the final bell rang, students flooded toward the hidden parking lot behind the gymnasium. By 3:30, over 60 people had gathered, phones ready to document whatever happened. Ethan arrived precisely on time, still wearing jeans and his usual hoodie, looking exactly like the quiet kid who had absorbed months of abuse. He walked to the center of the makeshift arena and waited, breathing steady and controlled. Derek appeared minutes later with Brad and Luis beside him. He had changed into athletic wear, emphasizing the size differential between them. The contrast was stark. Derek's 6'3" frame against Ethan's 5'7", at least 50 pounds separating them. "Last opportunity to apologize," Derek called out, projecting confidence he didn't entirely feel. "Admit you wasted everyone's time, and maybe I'll take it easy." Ethan surveyed the crowd, their phones raised, eager for spectacle. He thought about the months of torment, the laughter, the complete lack of empathy from anyone present. Then he looked back at Derek. "No." Derek's expression hardened. "Your funeral." He charged forward with the straightforward aggression that had always worked before. His plan was simple. Use superior size to overwhelm, pin down, dominate through physical advantage. Ethan saw the attack with perfect clarity, born from thousands of hours of practice. As Derek reached for him, Ethan shifted slightly left while dropping his center of gravity. Derek grabbed air as Ethan's hand secured his wrist. The execution was flawless. Ethan pulled Derek's wrist while stepping behind and sweeping his leg in one fluid motion. Derek found himself airborne, then crashing onto asphalt with enough force to drive the breath from his lungs. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Derek Patterson, who had never lost a physical confrontation, was on his back in under 2 seconds. "What just happened?" Derek wheezed, struggling for air. Ethan stood over him, perfectly balanced, breathing normally. "Get up!" Derek scrambled upright, embarrassment fueling rage. He threw a wild haymaker at Ethan's head, committing everything to the punch. Ethan ducked smoothly, entered Derek's guard, and wrapped his arms around the bigger boy's waist. Before Derek could process what was happening, Ethan had lifted him and driven him down with a textbook double-leg takedown. This time, Ethan followed him down. The crowd watched Derek disappear beneath Ethan's compact frame, witnessing something unprecedented: the systematic dismantling of everything Derek believed about fighting. Ethan established side control, his weight distributed precisely to prevent escape. Derek pushed desperately, but Ethan flowed with each attempt, transitioning seamlessly between positions. "Get off me!" Derek grunted, panic creeping into his voice as he realized his helplessness. "Are you going to leave me alone?" Ethan asked calmly, maintaining perfect control. "Go to hell!" Ethan transitioned to full mount, settling across Derek's hips. The bigger boy bucked wildly, but Ethan rode each movement effortlessly, like sailing through familiar waters. Brad, watching his friend's domination, decided to intervene. "Get off him!" he shouted, rushing forward. Ethan caught Brad's ankle without releasing Derek, using the wrestler's momentum to send him crashing down beside them. In one smooth motion, Ethan trapped Brad in a triangle choke with his legs while maintaining control of Derek with his upper body. Both bullies were neutralized simultaneously. Brad's face reddened as the choke compressed his carotid arteries, while Derek remained completely immobilized. "He's controlling both of them," someone whispered in amazement. Luis stepped forward but froze when Ethan's cold stare found him. The look promised there was space for one more if Luis wanted to test his luck. Luis stayed put. Brad's struggles weakened as oxygen deprivation took effect. Ethan held the submission a moment longer before releasing it. Brad rolled away, gasping and coughing violently. Derek had stopped fighting, staring up at Ethan with shock and dawning fear. "How?" he whispered. "9 years of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu," Ethan replied conversationally. "My father is Carlos Morales. Look him up." Several students immediately searched the name on their phones. "Oh my God!" someone exclaimed. "His dad fought professionally for years. He's got like 15 submission victories." The revelation spread through the crowd instantly. Ethan wasn't just some random transfer student. He was the son of a professional fighter, trained since childhood in one of the most effective martial arts on the planet. Derek's face had gone pale. I mean, "Of course you didn't," Ethan said, still calm, but letting years of suppressed frustration color his words. "You never bothered learning anything about me. You saw someone quiet and smaller and decided I was an easy target." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "But here's your lesson. Quiet doesn't mean weak, and size doesn't guarantee victory." Ethan stood smoothly, releasing Derek completely. The bigger boy scrambled backward, putting distance between them while trying to process his complete defeat. "This ends now," Ethan announced to everyone present. "Anyone who has issues with me can address them directly, like adults. Anyone who thinks bullying is acceptable at this school." He looked pointedly at Brad, still holding his throat. "You've seen the consequences." He retrieved his backpack and walked toward the school, the crowd parting instantly. "Wait!" Derek called out, voice cracking. Ethan turned back, eyebrow raised. Derek struggled to his feet, clothes dirty, dignity shattered. Students continued recording, capturing his humiliation from every angle. By tomorrow, the entire school would know exactly what had transpired. Derek started, then stopped. He looked around at the crowd, at his friends avoiding eye contact, at Jessica watching him with what might have been disappointment or pity. "I'm sorry," he managed finally, "for everything. The harassment, the names, today, all of it." Ethan studied him silently. "I was just—" Derek continued, then stopped again. "No excuse. I was wrong." "Yes," Ethan agreed simply. "You were. But you can choose to be different." He left Derek standing there, surrounded by the ruins of his former reputation. The transformation at Lincoln High was immediate. Videos of the confrontation circulated within hours. Students who had ignored Ethan now approached with respect and curiosity. Many wanted self-defense lessons. Others simply wanted to understand how someone so quiet had hidden such capability. Derek found himself experiencing unfamiliar territory as the subject of whispers and stares. The story grew with each retelling. Some versions claiming Ethan had submitted 3 attackers simultaneously using secret military techniques, but the most significant change occurred within Derek himself. The experience of complete helplessness, of being at another's mercy, had shattered his worldview fundamentally. For the first time, he understood what his victims had felt. 3 days later, Derek found Ethan eating alone in the library. "Can I sit?" Derek asked quietly. Ethan gestured to the empty chair. Derek sat heavily, his usual swagger completely absent. "I wanted to thank you." Ethan raised an eyebrow questioningly. "For not hurting me worse, for showing restraint when you could have really damaged me." Derek's voice was subdued. "I've been thinking about what you said, about choosing to be different." He paused before continuing. "I told Jessica everything, about what I did to you, what I've done to others for years. She said she'd been ashamed of being with me for months." Ethan remained silent, letting him continue. "I also told my parents. My dad was..." Derek's voice wavered slightly. "He said he didn't raise a coward who attacks people weaker than himself." "He's right," Ethan said simply. "I know." Derek met his eyes directly. "I want to change, to be better, but I don't know where to start." "Start with apologies," Ethan suggested. "Real ones, to everyone you've hurt, not just me. Then figure out why you needed to hurt people in the first place." Derek nodded slowly. "And if they won't forgive me, then you live with that." It's part of taking responsibility. Over the following weeks, Lincoln High adjusted to its new reality. Derek followed through on his commitment, seeking out students he had tormented and offering genuine apologies. Some accepted them graciously. Others rejected them completely. He joined the peer counseling program and began volunteering at a community center downtown. Brad and Luis gave Ethan wide berth but ceased their harassment of others entirely. Word had spread that Carlos Morales occasionally visited the school, and the sight of the former professional fighter in the hallways served as a powerful deterrent to would-be bullies. Ethan discovered his life at Lincoln had transformed completely. Students nodded respectfully when he passed. Teachers who had ignored the bullying now included him actively in discussions. The wrestling coach extended an invitation to join the team, which Ethan politely declined. "Why not compete?" Coach Anderson asked. "You've got obvious talent." "Because I didn't train to win trophies," Ethan explained. "I trained for protection, my own and others. There's a difference." The coach seemed to grasp something important in that distinction. On a Friday afternoon in late November, Ethan witnessed a familiar scene near the school entrance. A group of sophomore football players had surrounded a skinny freshman, tossing his backpack between them while he desperately tried to retrieve it. Ethan observed briefly. The freshman was trying to stand his ground despite obvious fear, much as Ethan had endured before reaching his limit. Not anymore, he decided. He approached with the quiet confidence he had discovered weeks earlier. "Problem here?" The sophomores turned, recognition dawning immediately. Everyone at Lincoln High knew Ethan Morales now. "No problem," their leader said quickly. "Just joking around." "Doesn't look like he's enjoying the joke," Ethan observed, nodding toward the freshman still gathering scattered papers. The sophomore calculated odds he didn't like. "Whatever, this is boring anyway." They departed without another word, leaving Ethan with the freshman. Ethan helped gather the remaining papers, handing them over with a slight smile. "You okay?" The freshman nodded gratefully. "Yeah, thanks. I'm Alex." "Ethan, if they bother you again, find me." Alex's eyes widened. "Really? Really? Nobody should face that alone." Walking to his car, Ethan reflected on everything that had changed since that October morning when Derek's crew had tripped him. He had learned that strength involved more than physical capability. It meant choosing battles wisely and fighting for the right reasons. He had discovered that sometimes the only way to stop being victimized was to refuse victimhood, regardless of consequences. The techniques his father had taught were merely tools. What mattered was having the courage to employ them when necessary. Most importantly, he understood that true strength meant protecting others, not just yourself. The quiet student who had absorbed abuse in silence had become someone others could rely on for protection and support. Driving home, Ethan smiled slightly, imagining his father's reaction when he described the incident with the sophomores. Carlos would be proud, not just of his son's technical skills, but of his judgment in applying them appropriately. His father's words echoed in his mind. A warrior chooses battles carefully. Fighting without purpose is weakness disguised as strength. Today, fighting had been necessary for Alex, and Ethan had been there to provide that protection. The transformation was complete. The silent observer had found his voice. But more significantly, the victim had become the guardian, ensuring others wouldn't endure what he had experienced. At Lincoln High, things had changed permanently, and Ethan Morales stood at the center of that change, quiet but unbreakable, small but mighty.